Today I'm bringing you some more websites to check out regarding Destiny 2. Some of these are completely interactive tools, while others not so much, but they're still handy. This is coming from the overwhelming amount of questions and feedback on the last couple of videos where I showed that Chrome extension named dim, or when I previewed the D2 Gunsmith website. Now after I was digging into this, I came to realize that a good friend of mine, Pattycakes, is actually also working on something similar. In fact, there's a good chance that as you're watching this, his has already been published. But either way, I was already in the thick of it and I wanted to share my thoughts regardless. I'm going to do my best to include and credit the folks that pour hours into these tools. I'm talking founders or main developers, can't cover everyone on a team, but I tried my best, so I apologize if I got a name wrong. Now I went through and wrote my pieces for all of the websites that I thought you would find useful. Turns out it's a lot, as you can see on screen right now. So instead of asking you to sit through a 35 to 40 minute video, I actually reorganized them into different categories to match their purpose. Today I'm going to be covering the first two, but heavily weighted towards weapon investigation. A lot of content creators bring you their videos by using tools such as these. I wanted to enable you folks to know where these things are and how to use them. But this time I wanted to release these in short, concise bursts across 1 week. So if you end up liking what you see today and you aren't subscribed yet, be sure to check that off so you can see the next 2 episodes. Now the first category is inventory management. Things like moving items to and from the vault, prioritization, sorting, power leveling, or just, cleaning house. I won't be doing a visual for this category like I will the others because I've already made 3 videos on Destiny Item Manager. Credit to Goose, Bhollis, and their entire team. We all know that this is my primary tool, but for each upload, I consistently saw comments on Ishtar. This is led by folks such as Nigel, or I believe he goes by TheRealDesignker, and their entire team. I've used it in the past, and I can assure you it's very stellar. Now, just because I didn't dive in on this category, make no mistake, these are the most useful player time savers, period. I highly recommend downloading these and learning them. The second category has some juice. I call it weapon investigation. This is when I want to figure out what guns there are and what might be the best to chase. Of course, there's video guides all over YouTube that exist to help with this, but I like to know all my options and tinker with them. Starting off, we have light.gg. This is the be-all end-all of information. Just anything I want to get the exact definition of, I go to light.gg. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to try and talk fast and only point out the tip of the iceberg. Let's say there's a perk that I want to know all about, like Swashbuckler. I type it in the top right-hand corner, it pops up right here and tells me exactly what it does. Let's say I wanted to know every single new weapon that came within Season 12 that's a part of Crucible. 21 items here. Most of that is just, armor on the 3 characters, but let's say I click on the Stars and Shadow Pulse. It's going to tell me it's a legendary energy pulse rifle. It's random perks, meaning if I delete my roll, I won't be able to reacquire it from collections. It shows me the stats you can see in-game, as well as the hidden stats that are on Bungie's side that you can't see in-game. There's a nice clean screenshot that you can always get of every item. There's all of the different perks that you can roll within each column on a gun. And then one pretty neat thing here is that they take the sample size of a bunch of these guns that have dropped. So for this one, they have 236,000 rolls that have dropped, and based on that data, they figured out that the most common perk for column 2 is accurized rounds, for example. Back to the top, maybe I want to use the filtering system for all the weapons in the game. Show me every kinetic, legendary, hand cannon. Bingo, here you go. Now you can go into the advanced search and you can limit these even further. Better Devils right here is a perfect example where they show you the sunset version as well as the reissued version down here. Back to the top, if you're signed in, you can use the collection to see your progress on all of these things here. I don't really use that, so I'm going to move right on to the God Roll Finder, which is really cool. This is a pretty cool method to figure out what guns have what rolls. Let's say I want to dig into Rangefinder first. I'm going to go to that search bar and type in Rangefinder. Here's the perk down here. When I click it, it's going to add it to this group 1. This is going to show me all of the guns that can roll with Rangefinder, and it's kind of a lot to look at. So I'm going to hit collapse all, or better yet, I'm going to go on the left-hand side and say, well, maybe I only care about hand cannon. There's these 6 guns right now that can drop with Rangefinder, and the reason for that is because they have some automatic default filters. If I click on this here, you can go and see what those filters are. Sunset was unchecked. If I recheck that and hit apply filters, there's all these old guns that are now sunset that could drop Rangefinder. Better yet, maybe I like Rangefinder with opening shot. I'm going to click on this and it's going to bring it up to group 1. It's showing us ones that can have Rangefinder or opening shot within the same column. It's showing us ones that can roll both of them together, ones that can get only one of them, so it's acting sort of like an OR function. Well, to fix that, I'm going to add a perk group. I'm going to move this opening shot over to group number 2, and now that's saying I want to see everything that can roll with opening shot and Rangefinder, but separate, so a combination of the 2. Now we're down to the 7 of them. Let's go back to filters, knock off Sunset just to see what happens. The Criminal's Dagger and the Dire Promise are the only 2 guns that can currently drop as of the upload date of the video with both of these perks. The last piece is the fact that I can see what I have. If I click on the Your Rolls tab, again, only if I'm signed in, it'll show me that yes, I have 2 Dire Promises in my vault default with both rangefinder and opening shot. Now, if I hit export to appraiser, it's going to open a new tab. This is an expansion of my role where I can click on different perks to see what my stats would be. Clicking on fast draw versus sure shot changes those internal stats. Real quick, I've reset this just to have the steady hand sight on here applied, showing me 33 hand cannons. I can hit the filter further button, which will then open up that same page I showed you earlier, except with your exact filters placed. Look at all of these guns right here, and they're even showing that perk that I chose. I can then click on a couple of these things, like let's say the Criminal's Dagger, Duke, True Prophecy versus the Steady Hand. And now that I've checked those off, I can go back to the top and hit compare. This now has the Criminals as my base comparison, like the foundation, and then it's going to show me those other 3 hand cannons relative to that one. If you're curious why this looks similar but slightly different from a lot of YouTube videos, it's because they tend to not click on relative. This filter up here, they can go to absolute. You do that, it shows you the exact number. D2 Gunsmith is the one that you saw in my steady hand video. This is my favorite interactive weapon checker created by Aundre Kerr. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that. For those of you that saw this in my steady hand video, I'll try and get through it quickly, but basically you go to the top left and you can search any gun you want in the game. I typed in steady and bam, there's these 2 versions. That's because the top one is an old one and the bottom one is that new one that we can get in Iron Banner right now. I click on that and it loads up a similar situation to that Light.gg appraisal tool. The beauty around this website is simply how user-friendly it is. It gives you the base stats right out the gate. I can choose my masterwork. I'll go range. It's showing an additional 9 right here because the range masterwork by default adds 1 already. And from there, I can play around with whatever perks I want. I can click on anything here and you can just see these stats changing. Not only can you see what's available on the gun, but you can pick and choose what perk combinations you want. Then don't forget, you might be one that likes targeting adjuster. These mods also work. If you went from 70 to 75 when I clicked on that. I want to bring you down to the bottom now where there's this little section called extras. You can copy the dim wishlist to your clipboard, which I'm not going to actually get into because that's all about dim. You take a screenshot, toggle the modifiers, in-game range. I'm going to talk about this in a second, and then add to comparisons, which I'm also going to come back to in a second. Let's say I didn't want to search just one gun at a time. I can click on this filter button right here and I can go weapon type. Maybe I want to look at hand cannons. I go up to archetype. I can choose 120 aggressives, go back and collapse it. Any power cap because I don't really care about sunset right now. I'm just curious. Apply filters and bam, here we go. It's including the blues, the whites, everything. If I'm like, shit, I didn't want to include those, I click on the filter again. Unfortunately, you have to redo this unless there's a way around that I'm not sure of. But Aundre, if you're watching this, it would be really cool if it could remember what we already had filtered. Get rid of the rarities. Let's legendary, exotic, apply filters. Bingo. Now this is where I might find that comparisons tooltip handy. I click on this button and it has added this steady hand to my comparison tab. I'm not going to go there yet, but let's go to the Duke next. So now I've got the Duke on screen. I hit add to comparisons. Cool, I'm good. Let's add the True Prophecy, add to comparisons. Now I click up here, that same symbol, comparisons. Bingo. You can see those 3 guns that I chose while I was doing this. It's using that same concept from before. One catch here is that it adds whatever perks that you choose. So you can see that the Duke is showing 16 less range to the steady hand. And that's because the Duke that I added here was before I selected any of the perks on the user interface. Same thing with the True Prophecy, but the steady hand, when I hit add to comparisons, it was after I selected those things. So you have to be careful about that. I don't know how hard this would be, but it would be pretty amazing if you could just select them right here by clicking on these circles. It does say work in progress here. So either way, this guy's done an unbelievable job with this website. Now let's go back to a clean slate again because I want to show you that this also has that perk ability. See right here, I can click on perks. It has these search functions. So I can go rangefinder, apply filters, every single gun that has rangefinder in the game. And there's one last thing I want to show you. We're back to the steady hand page. I've taken off all of the perks and there's this little target here called in-game range. Well, there's a gentleman named Mmonx who runs another website that I'm going to show you next. And it's all about this in-game range. Destinyindepth is run by a gentleman named Mmonx. He has one of, if not the most hardcore damage fall off Excel sheets out there. His site has some really good stuff on it, and the beauty of it is the range calculator. The reason why I love that is because if you did watch my steady hand video, you'll have heard me use the expression range compression, and that's the relationship between a gun's range stat and the actual in-game distance that it can continue to do max damage before damage drop-off begins. This is going to be a 15-second crash course on range so that you can understand why his website is very cool for this. Let's say you have a certain amount of range that you can do in-game. Obviously, you've got your range stat bar, and when you add that, you can extend the range. Then you have certain perks that can also add further range. And then on top of that, you've got whatever sight you pick, which can add even more range. The reason for some of these things is because of zoom factor. Now we're on his website. I've already clicked on the range calculator button down here, and he goes through defining all of the terminology extremely well. His minimum range is when you start to see damage drop off. Let me make sure that's abundantly clear. Let's say you're standing this far away from a person and that this is the maximum distance you can go. The 140 hand cannon, you would deal 70 damage, meaning if you were closer, you'll still do 70. If you're back here, you'll do 70. But the moment you back up further to say right here, you might be doing 62 damage. That is called damage drop off from this point in that direction. Well, if you were to go extremely far, there's a point which they call the damage floor. That's where the gun will do like 14 or something. Don't quote me on that, but it basically hits its absolute minimum damage that it can possibly do. And no matter how far you go, it's going to always do 14 damage, no matter what. That's what he's trying to explain to you. He's saying this point right here is that minimum amount of distance that you can go and do max damage. Backing up all the way to here is the maximum distance that you could go with this hand cannon. In other words, that floor. And the reason why that matters is because sometimes you can still 3-tap somebody in between this range. If this still doesn't make sense, go to the website, read the definitions very clearly, and I promise it'll help. He talks about the zoom thing I mentioned, and I've already set up 2 scenarios. On the left-hand side, I've got a dire promise. I'm going to open up dim right here. This guy with the rangefinder, 59 range. On the right-hand side, I've got a different hand cannon, the Ace. No rangefinder perk, but 86 range. I go through and I punched those things in. 59 range, 86 range. How much zoomed here? These say 0, but that's just because they're modifiers. These hand cannons have a zoom of 14. If you're not sure about that, open up dim and it'll tell you right there. Got the Ace of Spades, zoom 14. Under the perks, I've picked rangefinder for my dire, no rangefinder for my Ace. I keep going down and here's the results. My dire promise will do maximum damage up to 33 meters or 32.77, whereas the Ace of Spades will also do 33 meters, but just over 33.36. These are basically equal, and my dire had 59 range and my Ace had 86. I'm working on an entire video to explain to you guys how important rangefinder is, but that's off topic. 0 meters, 33 meters, it's going to do 70, and all the way to 47 meters, it's going to drop down to that 14, whatever that minimum damage is. So it's going to keep dropping from 70 down to 14 at 47 meters. Everything after 47 meters, it just stays at 14. At 0, it's doing 70 damage, obviously. It'll also go to 33 meters and keep doing 70 damage. But then by the time it reaches 45 meters, it'll be down to its 14. So the dire actually has slightly more range in the long term as you keep backing up, but that doesn't really matter. The point was to show you that his website can do this for you, and it can go one step further. If you headshot someone 3 times doing 70 damage each time, that's 210 damage dealt. So we can definitely be outside of that perfect range and still 3-tap an enemy guardian. What he built in here is for you to decide how many headshots or body shots did you get and how much health did your opponent have. If you're like, oh, I wonder how I'm doing against 5 resilience, against 9 resilience, and all that good stuff, it'll tell you how much further you can go based on that scenario. Again, I want to make this very clear. Let's look at the dire promise scenario over here. If there's an enemy right here at 0 meters, we know from above that I can stand at 33 meters and keep doing 70 damage. But what this is telling us is saying, hey, if you hit 70 damage per headshot and you hit 3 headshots in a row and they only have 187 health, so 0 resilience, you can actually increase your optimal range by 1.6 meters. So what he's saying is you could actually technically go to like 35 meters almost and still get that 3-tap kill, because at that point, maybe you're doing 66 damage or whatever it is, times 3 is greater than 187 health of your opponent, which he then, of course, summarizes for you right here. Optimal range, 34.43 meters. Optimal range, 34.62 meters. So at the end of the day, if I go to 3-tap someone with my 59 range dire promise with rangefinder versus an 86 range Ace without rangefinder, there is 0.2 meters difference between these two hand cannons. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I think you should go to this website, tinker with this, reach out or follow him on Twitter, because he has a pretty amazing spreadsheet that goes a lot further than what I've shown you now. Regarding your own personal weapon comparisons, I still think dim is king for that, and I've already made 3 videos on this. Some honorable mentions here are Mercules 904 and PandaPaxxy. These geniuses run some incredible spreadsheets. Mmonx is named DestinyMassiveBreakdowns, and it's a comprehensive time to kill chart. As I mentioned, we have a lot to go through, so I'm not going to walk you through every single piece here, but the key is a lot of those video guides on YouTube reference this sheet for their time to kill information very often. The really neat part that he's recently introduced is the ability to look at not only optimal time to kill, which is when you're hitting all headshots, and of course the worst time to kill, which is all body shots, but more so the effective time to kill. So let's say you looked at your AR stats and you're typically at 60% headshot percentage or whatever it is. You can actually enter that in and your opponent's resilience, and it'll show you what the time to kill for you might be. Jumping over to the one from PandaPaxxy, I wanted to highlight this because it's very helpful for knowing what the heck is out there whenever new seasons come out. A lot of people, and more importantly developers, respect Panda's efforts on building this sheet so that their sites can reference it. I'm not going to pretend like I know how they look up API versus info in his sheet, but whenever you're at the launch of a new season, you can be sure to see that post from Panda. And I must say, it's been great getting to know him in the Discord. If you want to join and have a chat about any of this stuff or get help on anything, like I said before, joining the Discord is a really effective way of doing that, and I'd love to chat with you in there if you do decide to. Now, we covered item management and went in depth on how to investigate weapons using all of these websites. A bit of a roadmap for my next few uploads are finishing up these topics like matchmaking and stats, how to look up a lot of things like your overall accuracy per gun across the entire game, or how you're doing in one season versus another, ways to monitor progress. Additionally, there's some really good websites for figuring out what the new armor is, new ornaments for some of you that are into the fashion side of the armor, how to keep track of events or different mapping tools, as well as some really important community-driven content that has taught me an immense amount of stuff. So I'm pretty excited to publish those, as well as a tutorial on the quick draw glitch. This is something I keep getting comments on in a lot of my videos from watching my gameplay. Now, I already have 2 videos out there, but they're fairly old, and I found a better way, I think, to summarize the most common stuff. So be sure to subscribe and be on the lookout if you're into those topics. Now, I'm getting a puppy tomorrow, so join the damn Discord so I can spam you with puppy pictures. See you next time.